Okay.
Okay.
Uh, am I recording? Yeah. Uh, this is a reading of the silent word, is it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then these are the acknowledgments. This book has been written with the cooperation of many people. It began on my evening walks with Erich and extended over most of the 10 years I was with Maribaba. From these walks, I gathered whatever small understanding I have of the life and time, the being and function of the avatar, and of the real meaning of obedience to the master. Erich might well be called the tongue of God, and I was all ears, hardly ever intruding with questions or with my own ideas.
Excuse me, I'm going to jump in and just remind everyone that we are reading a book written by Francis Brabazon.
Okay.
Excellent. Then there was the daily company of the resident Mandali, or close disciples, men and women who lived at the Merzad ashram, Pendu, Baidul, Vishnu, Kaka, Aloba, and Bao, Goher, Naja, Mani, and Rano. Mera and Meru,
Oops, sorry. Uh,
Mera,
uh, sorry
uh,
about. Okay.
there you go.
Sorry. Okay.
Mera and Meru were on the other side of the wall at that time and were never seen by the men. These men and women were living examples in their daily lives of actual discipleship in this time and age. They did not derive from sculptured figures of the past, nor had they materialized out of books written in a language no one now speaks.
Okay.
They were as they were, molded and remolded from the residual impressions of
Sanskar.
sanskaras, thank you, of many lives to take their place with God man in his present advent. Unlike Erich, they had no quote unquote knowledge to pass on to others. Their path was in pure service, without thought of personal reward. Next, there were the Mandali who lived away from Mirzad, but under Baba's detailed instructions, who came to the ashram for an hour, a day, or a week when when he called them. The extent of this class was never known to anyone except Baba himself, but it would have been some hundreds. A few of these were Padri, uh, in parentheses, Ferdun Naushirwan driver, in parentheses, who looked after the Marabad ashram. Adi, that's Adi K. Irani, who had charge of the Ahmednagar office. Nariman, that's Nariman Dadachanji, a Bombay businessman, and his wife Arnavaz. Meherji, that's Meherji Karkaria, a Pune businessman. Merwan Jasawala, Erich's young unmarried brother, who, as well as supporting his mother and sister, was the supply man to the ashram of all sorts of odd things not procurable locally. Dr. Donkin, retired after completing his great book, The Wayfarers, to occupy a series of uneasy residences. Ramju, Abdul Karim Ramju Abdullah, who divided his time between business and literary work and spent the summers with Baba. He and Padri and Adi had come to Baba when they were quite young and had shared in the adventures and hardships of the early years. Baba made it quite clear that there was no difference between the two Mondalis, and that each and all would go on ripening in love, whether living with him or far away. so long as they obeyed his instructions to the letter. All these maintained a keen interest in the book over the years of its writing. Co-workers also were the scores of Baba's followers who, when this biographical project became known to them, sent me accounts of their meeting Baba and his life influence on them. Perhaps a subsequent volume will have room for at least some of these letters. Also, there were the thousands who came to the great public gatherings, called darshan programs, each a song of praise and supplication, each a mirror reflecting a rare personal experience. All these were fellow workers in a very real sense of the word. I gratefully acknowledge the work of the early diarists, Ramju, Pandoba, Pawar, Padri, and Chanji, who kept their records often at the expense of sleep after a grueling day. I am most grateful to Avatar Mayor Baba Trust, Ahmednagar, for giving me access to all their copyrighted material. I thank Bal Natu for his translations of Indian words and texts. I am grateful to May Lundqvist for her vigilant eye in detecting errors in the various drafts, and for her many useful suggestions for text improvement, and for her typing the whole final draft. Thanks are due to Lorna Roos and Judith Garbett for the typing of other drafts.
Part 1, Introductory. Men are born and die and are reborn until they die into the deathless and are never born again. But one man, being birthless and deathless, takes birth again and again because of the cry of the world for relief from the burden of living, and to mirror himself in the tears of his lovers. This man is the God-man, whole God, perfect man. Because he is God, his actions as a man are perfect. And because he is a man, mankind partakes of the divine qualities of his godhood. To some, he comes as a dark cloud, heavy with the blessings of rain at the height of summer's heat. To some, he comes as the tender sun at the end of winter's freeze to turn ice into murmuring music. And to some, he is 2 arms and a kiss, 2 eyes and a golden word to be uttered. The right to eat bread instead of stones, to love and sing and stop building tomorrow is reestablished. And the boughs of the beloved's orchard hang low so that the fruits which only the long-armed could reach may be plucked by all. Creation marches up through the circles of expanding consciousness, and men crisscross the worlds of sensory and intellectual experience, abandoning one vehicle when it is of no further use and building another for the next stage of the journey, all at the instance of the original whim, who am I? One by one, they break away from the anthill of coming and going, from the jungle of eating and being eaten, and take the road back through the widening circles of love to the only reality. I myself am God. The first one to accomplish this double journey knew at its end that no journey had ever been journeyed, that he had always been where he was, and he came back to us, making no journey at all in doing so, for he was already within each of our hearts as our true self, came back to us to awaken us from our dream journeys, to take the no road of dust to his feet, to the reality of ourselves. His home is in the heart, yet each time he must come to it and knock on its door again, for the most part only to find that it is full of the strangers of our wants. And being a shy man, Easily embarrassed by the presence of strangers, he turns away. And because the heart of man is something great, so great that God himself can live comfortably and happily in it, when he turns away, nature, which waits upon man when men obey God's laws, longing to achieve man's state, is betrayed and also turns away. And lands which were fertile become deserts, rivers which fed man overwhelm them, and new disease flourishes. God-man means today. Today means to eat from his orchard and to drink in the wine shop he has opened in Love Street, and to sleep under the shelter of his feet. Tomorrow is not what we may build, but what he permits to endure. Tomorrow, as far as we are concerned, will be more miles along the roads of his journey. But now he goes with us, and so today and tomorrow meet in his smile and are drowned in the wine cup he fills for us. He comes because of men's cry and to see himself in the mirrors of his lover's tears. And the latter is the greater act, for the cry is answered out of compassion, but the mirror and the image are because of love. Love was present in the whim of Who Am I? The divine qualities only appeared when the word went out from itself in search of itself. They were the brightness of the first morning, and the singing of the stars and the shout of men were because of it. They were the word's glorious escort, and they attended love's dear person on his coming to us and his going, and during the interval between these, which is called his advent. On the roads of his journey across the world, he tells one or another of his bright attendants: compassion, mercy, brother of the lowly, helper of the helpless, to comfort and encourage those of his lovers who call to him from the anguish of not remembering him as he should be remembered. Since God-man's birth is his answer to the cry of the world, his form is the embodiment of all men's sufferings, but the touch of his hand is our healing. His countenance is a light in each one's darkness, and his words, even the lightest passing remarks, are paths to his feet. Those who see and touch him have their reward according to the clearness of their sight and the purity of their touch. Those who believe without ever having seen him have few obstructions in their way and will meet him next time. But those who serve him without thought of themselves are the children of the Daman and will never lose their hold on it until he shakes them free into man-godhood. He is the master of the world, yet he apparently allows the world to master him so that his lovers may learn to turn seeming defects into real victories.
Seeming defeats.
Thank you. I'll read that sentence again. He is the master of the world, yet he apparently allows the world to master him so that his lovers may learn to turn seeming defeats into real victories. Every blow loosens the samskaric shackles on the soul. He is the slave of the love of his lovers, that love which makes the lover the dust of his feet and a lord of creation. The cross and the flute and the begging bowl are his eternal symbols made of his flesh, suffered, breathed into, outheld in the same one eternal moment. There was a time when God-man was not, neither was anything. There was only the eternal is state of God. He became as soon as we were, and having come, he will never leave us. If we seek to live wisely or abandon ourselves to folly, if we love and serve others or remain in the cold prison cells of ourselves, he is with us. He is with us whatever we are doing. There is nowhere else he can be. He is with each one of us till the end of each one's little world. Because we cannot understand his time scale of timelessness, we speak of his coming to us and his going away. But there is nowhere from which he may come. He is always here, standing outside the doors of our hearts, knocking so discreetly in case we are not ready to be disturbed. And when we do open to him, and he sees the drunken riot going on inside, he silently withdraws. His 700 years instant will pass in an instant, and he will knock again. He comes his not coming, just as the sun rises, it's not rising. The sun's rising is only because the earth turns about it. It is always where it is, waiting for each piece of earth to receive its light. So, beloved God-man is eternally where he is, here with us. If we could really grasp this, we would become self-realized instantly and remain where we are, neither coming in fresh birth nor going in another death. And this experience requires nothing but his ever-present grace in his ever-present person, and for our hearts to be empty when he knocks. In the instant of his knocking and our opening, and his withdrawal and his coming in, well pleased with the spotlessness of our house, is contained the whole drama of our existence from the beginningless beginning of things and the entire love game of the lover and the beloved. He is as lover seeking a beloved through whom to realize his love nature. We as lovers so greatly desiring to pass away into him that we allow our houses to fall into ruin and we become dust dancing before the threshold of his beautiful feet. Time ceases. The world's tomorrow is but an extension of the false dream which was yesterday, and today was our possessing and nourishing it. God-man is always the same one God-man, the same waiting one in a change of dress with a new name, crucified, playing his flute, gently knocking on our doors. We know this. We know he is the indescribable beloved who is before the world was, who waits for a spark of love in our hearts to be blown by the breath of devotion into a broom of flame with which to sweep out the strangers who for ages have been devouring our substance, who smiles as our neglected houses fall into dust, and who laughs when empires crumble in ruins. We know of his continuous glory through what is called the past, but it is his waiting present person whom we love. He who waits for us as little as one wide it is all ended smile when we open to his knock, and for as much as the birth of a new humanity when he speaks again his becoming word. We who have come to this infinitely beautiful one sing under the shade of wine glasses upheld for him to fill when it so pleases him. And when the melody of pouring wine begins, we are lost to all but love. Time now is measured by the duration of each song. We do not say so and so time ago. We say a song or two songs ago. Tomorrow exists only as the moment of his mood when he will bestow his glance of grace. Jai Baba.
Let me roll first. Go ahead, Betty.
Chapter 2, The Birth of the God-Man. Avatar Meher Baba was born when from his unbroken, timeless is state of very being, the whim for self-knowledge surged in him, and the dark burning stuff of creation issued from his eternal, but only now awakened, creativity. And because of the shock and reverberation of the whim's surge, the shock of the all knowing asking himself who he was, the dark burning fluidity of all things hardened through 7 stages of hardening into stone, each stage giving off the gases of its hardness becoming. Oh my goodness. Thus was the illimitable, all embracing beloved born of ignorance into darkest darkness, stone. But the light of himself, his pure luminosity, was hidden in the darkness, and after eons broke out of stone and clothed itself in every kind of leaf and bush and tree, which were created out of the residual impressions of stone confinement. And in so creating and experiencing these new forms, he forgot the painful memory of stone. After he had experienced the numberless forms of vegetation, he broke free from all of them and in turn lived in and left behind worms and fish and birds and animals, and now lives in our hearts. And because he has experienced darkest darkness and knows our hearts to the deepest caverns of their darkness and remains living in them as pure light and all love, he is the only beloved whom we should call beloved. This beloved, who lives eternally in our hearts, was born in our time as a man, because time was falling to pieces and all real values were vanishing, and only as a man could his love and compassion for us be fully expressed and his all power be wholly exercised. He who is always here, materialized out of his pure luminosity, and a form which all men in then and later would adore and worship in song, each in his own way of singing. He was born as a man, with man consciousness out of his compassion for men. But as soon as the master Brabazon, with a kiss, tore the veil of that consciousness, he tried to escape back to his birthless self, and the master Upasni Maharaj had to go after him and bring him back and make him aware of his office of God-man, which he holds through everlasting time. All this took place in the flash of a 7-year moment. The unlimited had accepted gross limitations and remained unlimited. Knowledge had accepted complete ignorance and knew everything. Power had accepted utter weakness and was still all powerful. Bliss had accepted suffering and was ever the ocean it was. When all this had taken place and the vast sum of evolution, reincarnation, and involution was totaled, and his seal, all this is good, always was good, and shall remain so eternally, was put upon the creation, he was again the birthless, always here, divine beloved, shining in an entirely new man shape, progenitor of a new humanity. His birth, although in the manner of all men's, was because of his compassion. His body was a coat he had put on to snare our imagination and challenge our bravery. His presence said, I have been with you since the beginning of things, when I sent you dancing down the roads of being, shouting in love for me. I sent you, but I also went with you, supporting and encouraging you every step of the shout. You went out singing in search of me. Who among you now has the daring to find me and know that I am that one who has always been with you? I am nearer to you than you are to yourselves. so near that only a breath separates us. He had put on the coat of his body out of compassion for us, but he was never comfortable in it. It was new and stiff, sometimes leaving him cold and sometimes making him too hot. It was tailored immaculately, but it never fitted. And at times he seemed surprised that he had ever had it made, and he was wearing it. Because of his perfection of manhood, he was a stranger in the world of men, a stranger in a stiff new coat. The world was his, but he did not belong in it. He embraced it, but looked at it askance, wondering why he had ever permitted himself to create it. Why, being the wisest of the wise, he had done what the most foolish would not do, create an unending trouble for himself. He looked at the world askance, but also with the tender regard of a lover who understands every mood of a capricious and wilful beloved. His eyes were the ancient ones, he of infinite attributes, all loving, all knowing, all seeing, all suffering, all patient, all forgiving, eternal newness. He is the junction of reality and illusion, bliss and misery, knowledge and ignorance, power and helplessness. His birth as the creation and his birth as the divine beloved are but stories told out of a dream until he is born in us and we in him. And all our defenses, labored at over countless lives, fall down at his embrace. For the purpose of the creation was the individualization of the ocean of being into drops. And the purpose of God man's form was that the drops should know that they are the ocean. In this birth, there are thousands of deaths every moment when we forget him. But such is his compassion that as soon as we remember him again, he takes birth. His teaching was in his being, what he eternally is, the Ancient One. His presence was the sum of knowledge, and his words were the audible syllables of his silence, proclaiming his ever here-ness. He is in person. He, in his person, was the perfection, sorry, and completeness of divine utterance, and to give us a clear path through our blasphemies of purpose and travesties of action, he said, "Love me," meaning, "Do for me as you would have me do with you." And he also said, "Be happy," meaning surrender to me in perfect childlike trust, for you can do nothing unless my word sanctions it. And because each of us could only love according to the love he had, he gave each that sort of love which each could endure the shining of. But because we wanted to hear words of our languages, he also gave out some volumes of discourses and messages, and only a few knew what loving care he put into them to make them incomprehensible to all but the dullest intellects, so that we would become aware of the absurdity of trying to understand with our minds that which is entirely beyond mind, and begin to love. His teaching was in his being what he is, the Ancient One, the eternal beloved, whose creative word broke into thousands of millions of mirrors, mirrors of stone and mirrors of human hearts. And the stone mirrors reflected his stoneness, and hearts reflected his manhood, and those of the perfect saints tell him he is God. Over and above telling us who he was, what could such a beloved say except, "Love me and be happy"? When we do these things, we do not need books, and if we do not do them, thousands of volumes would be of no use to us. His daily talk was rain falling on the dust of the world, turning it green for a moment, refreshing our eyes and spirits and making us think that greenness and refreshment were eternal truth. But his love me implied loving in the desert as well as in the green places, and his be happy meant to be so despite whatever hardships he, in his infinite compassion, gave us. Because he is everywhere, in everyone, he necessarily had to circumnavigate the world, so that those who, because of sanskaric circumstance, were dotted about over the earth, could know that he, the beautiful one, who makes shine all which shines and burns all which is dry and sapless, was here on earth, and so that those who were ready for closer association could attach themselves to his person, and those not so called would begin to prepare their heart habitations for his occupancy another time when, road weary, he knocks on their doors. And he fed the poor in their thousands to satisfy their immense hungers, and gave them cloth to cover their wretched nakedness. And he went to those who lived beyond the borders of gross consciousness to comfort them and urge them on the next stage of their journey to him for their own sakes, for love's sake, and for the sake of humanity, and to strike off the golden shackles of those bowed before his door, so that they could look up and behold his ever glory and cross over to the union of self-state. The sound of those shackles falling on love's ground reaches the world as a fabulous music unheard, but felt, inspiring in us the possibility of journeying, hollowing places in our hearts, so that the first notes of the beloved's I am song can be heard. Such is the bright beloved whom we call Meher Baba, who was born from his unbroken, timeless is state, because he was but did not know he was, who made the immense journey from beyond the beyond to our hearts, and was born in our time as a man to reassure us that he was with us, and he had been since the beginning of the world, and would be until each of our worlds perished unsupported by desire. He created for us a new opportunity for service and gave us a song to sing that we would be eternally new. Hmm.
Hmm. So beautifully written. Give me the go, Gene.
Go ahead, Marvin.
Chapter 3 is previous births. Before Meher Baba was Meher Baba, he was Mohammed, and his father was Abdullah, and his mother Amina, and his wife was Khadija, who was 15 years older than he. And after she died, when he was 40 years, he married several other women, but they were either tribal alliances or widows of his captains killed in battle. But he especially loved Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr, his chief disciple. Once, when some of his companions asked him who he was, he said, I am what Abraham, my father, prayed for, and for the good news of Jesus, my brother. When my mother was carrying me, she saw a light proceeding from her, which lit up the whole land. When I was a small boy shepherding the lambs with a brother of mine, behind the tents, two men dressed in shining white came and seized me and threw me to the ground, took out my heart and split it, and took out a black drop, which they threw away. Then they washed my heart thoroughly with snow they had brought in a gold bowl. Then one said to the other, weigh him against 10 of his people. They did so, and I outweighed them. Then they weighed me against 100 and 1,000, and I outweighed them. He said, let it be now For if we weighed him against his whole tribe, he would outweigh them. People said of Mohammed that he was the first of his people in manliness, the best in character, most noble in lineage, the best neighbor, the most kind, truthful, and reliable, and they called him the trustworthy. And before Mohammed, Meher Baba was Jesus, whose father was Joseph, and whose mother was Mary, as everyone knows. He had no wife, he was a wanderer, and his earth stay was short. Before he dropped his body, he told the people, though some say that he only told his immediate disciples, that he would come again. This he did in AD 570 and stayed with us until AD 632. Once he wept, and the whole world was drowned. And before Jesus, he was Buddha, who was born a prince and married, but soon left his wife for the road with a begging bowl. His ministry was the longest of all, 50 years. And before the Buddha, he was Krishna, and his father was Vasudeva, who was a great chief of a pastoral people dwelling along the river Yamuna, or Jumna, as it is now called, and his mother was Devaki, but he was suckled by Yashoda. While still a boy, he liquidated various and many obstructive and antisocial elements in the community, or, as they put it in their primitive language, he slew many demons. He was also exceedingly mischievous and plagued his foster mother to distraction. One day she caught him stealing butter, but he denied it. She said, "Open your mouth." He did so, and the poor woman saw the universe therein with all its burning suns. At another time, she tied him to a tree, and he walked off, dragging the tree with him. He grew into an incredibly handsome youth, whose charm none could resist. One night he danced with 16,000 girls, accompanying the dances with his magic flute, and the night itself stood still in ecstasy. He became the greatest warrior, not only of his own people, but of all the tribes around. He was Dharma, or divine law personified, and so never hesitated to break the law to suit his purposes. And when things were quiet on the military and legal fronts, he would carry off another willing royal maiden for his love satisfaction, and as a sure way of starting up another war. On the eve of the great battle that ended all battles for a long time, and in which Krishna did not fight, but was Prince Arjuna's charioteer, he delivered his song of the Lord, proclaiming his God is state, and urging us to love the divine beloved and remember his name in our daily work. And before Krishna, beloved Baba was Rama, whose father was King Dasharatha, which means 10 chariots, which means that his rule extended to the 10 points of the world. His mother was Queen Kaushalya. His wife was peerless Sita. He was the perfect warrior king. And before that, Baba was Zoroaster. His father was Purushapa, which means with gray horses. And his mother was Dugdova, or who has milked cows. It is said that when he was born, he laughed, and the laughter illuminated the whole house. His father was astonished at him, at his laughter and beauty and loveliness, and he said in his heart, "This is the glory of God. Save this child. Every infant born into the world has wept, but all who were unclean and evil were stung to the heart by that laughter and hated the light bringer. There was a king who, like Herod, determined to do away with a possible rival, but when he struck at the child with his dagger, his arm became withered. Like Jesus, he began his ministry at the age of 30, preaching the same one eternal existent one, At first, because he owned only a few cattle, the people did not listen to him. But when he went, when he won the ear and heart of King Vishapa, Vishapta, Visaspa, sent out his armies and converted the people that way. Not so cruel, really, when one considers that to deny the avatar is to suffer the hell of remorse after one dies. And so it does not matter much whether one meets death by the sword or in bed. Beyond Zoroaster, beloved Baba did not go, for with him we are already back 7,000 years, although some authorities say it was only 6,000, and are dealing with things in a language no one any longer can understand. Once, when talking to us about these previous incarnations, Baba said that each time, despite his perfection, he showed one weakness. That of Mohammed was that he said he was only a messenger, instead of telling the truth that he was God. And that of Jesus was in his calling upon his Father, which limited him to sonship. That of the Buddha was in his explaining the path only as far as nirvana, passing away, and saying nothing about the I am God state, nirvakalpa. That of Krishna was in not being able to protect his gopis, and he himself, the great archer, dying from the poisoned arrow of an aboriginal. That of Rama was in his listening to village gossip and putting away faultless Sita. Baba did not say was Zoroaster's weakness, but perhaps that was because of reverence for himself as the first avatar shining through the midst of time. Someone asked Baba what was his weakness this time, and he said he would answer that question when he came next time in 700 years.
And we'll pick up here next week.